So, this episode of the podcast is extremely triggering. We talk about self harm, we talk about sexual assault, we talk about depression. And if you are somebody who is struggling with any of these things, we definitely encourage you to seek help, including sources like the Trevor Project. We're going to leave some information for the Trevor Project below. But again, we are talking about a lot of very difficult subjects. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. Welcome to T Girls Podcast. My name is Nalia, and this is my co-host, Danny. Today, we are doing an episode that's a departure from what we've done before. We're talking about something that is extremely serious, which is domestic violence and sexual assault, especially in the transgender community. So this is going to be a little bit of a serious question, and it'll have a little bit of a different tone than what we usually do. But it's extremely important for us to talk about it. And it's extremely important to hold people accountable, even if they're in our own community. So with that said, I wanted to introduce our guest on the podcast today, Jacob Diamond. Jacob, if you want to say a few words about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jacob Diamond. I'm a personal trainer and model. Kind of lived all over. Started my medical transition about 10 years ago, and been part of the community ever since, but not so much the last 5 years until recently.
And what made us interested in speaking to you, a couple of different things, but I came across a video of yours on TikTok where you were discussing a transgender influencer, somebody that is pretty well known in this community, Rose Montoya. For anybody who is watching this and who's in the transgender community, you might know of Rose Montoya because she has several 100,000 followers on TikTok. But on top of that, there was a scandal that came out with her last year. Danny, you and I discussed this on TikTok and the podcast earlier. Can you describe a little bit of what that scandal was?
Yeah, so last Pride, Rose was invited to the White House and she flashed everyone at an official Pride celebration and was rightfully banned after that.
Yeah, I remember watching the video and reacting to it and coming with the tone that I was extremely disappointed in the fact that somebody would go to the White House and flash their tits in a scenario where transgender people's rights are being taken away for sexual misconduct. Which, by the way, transgender people are not the people who are out there harassing children or perpetrating violence for the most part, statistically. But she went and did that, and it was a clear violation of everybody who was there, and it didn't make the community look good. But what I was shocked to find out is that Rose Montoya has now been accused by, 11 transgender people for sexual assault and violence. Is that right?
I can't go into certain details. For sexual assault, it could definitely be up to 11. Emotional abuse and threatening, she's done to all 11. Sexual abuse seems to be confirmed at least 5. I can't really discuss certain details. It depends on what state you live in, whether certain things are considered sexual assault. But in certain states, all 11 would have been considered sexual assault victims in some capacity. But that's as much detail as I can say about that. But there are, I believe, 5 confirmed that have gone public about sexual misconduct in some capacity.
Okay. I want to show you guys the video of her, and then I want to continue this conversation with a video that Jacob did on his Instagram and TikTok. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll take a look at this.
A transgender activist has been banned from the White House for going topless on the South Lawn during a Pride event. Rose Montoya was among hundreds invited by the Biden administration to an event over the weekend to celebrate LGBTQ+ Pride Month. Montoya posted a video from the event to Instagram that included a clip of her standing in front of the White House topless and covering herself with her hands. A White House representative said that Montoya and the other people featured in her video would be banned from future events. Quote, "This behavior is inappropriate and disrespectful for any event at the White House. It is not reflective of the event we hosted to celebrate LGBTQ+ families or the other hundreds of guests who were in attendance," the White House spokesperson said. "Individuals in the video will not be invited to future events." Montoya posted a video response on Instagram that said the following.
Conservatives are trying to use the video of me topless at the White House to try to call the community groomers, etc. And I would just like to say that, first of all, going topless in Washington, D.C. is legal. And I fully support the movement in freeing the nipple, because why is my chest now deemed inappropriate or illegal when I show it off? However, before coming out as trans, it was not.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a second to respond to that. How does it feel to look at that video, Jacob?
That was my first time seeing that video. I didn't learn about the White House event until like maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I can't say that I was personally surprised. I dated Rose for a year and a half, and if there's one thing that she loves, it's attention, and that what she did, it got her attention, didn't it? Um, for a number of reasons, it upset me as a trans man who's been abused by her, to see her disregard the feelings of trans masculine people. From my understanding, there were two trans masculine people who got up the courage to take a photo of their top surgery scars, because it's the first time trans people had been invited to the White House, and it was an amazing opportunity for us to be humanized in the eyes of Americans. And so these two trans masculine people, something that's unique to our experience is that even after having that type of gender affirming care, a lot of us, we can't go to the beach or to public pools or take our shirts off without outing ourselves. So, from my understanding, they were taking that picture to kind of humanize themselves as just American men. Like, yeah, they have scars on their chest, but it doesn't make them any different. So it's supposed to be, focused on the fact that they're trans masculine people, and she really just kind of twisted it for like her own personal gain, and made it not anything about them. And also, considering the first 2 times she assaulted me and how inappropriate it was, where it was and who was around, finding out that there were children at this picnic, that this was like the most highly inappropriate environment to be doing this. I don't know, it just re-traumatized me further that she is so emboldened that she feels that she can do anything and get away with it, even flashing her breasts at the White House and embarrassing the whole community, in a time where people are calling trans people groomers and they're calling us predators. And you think that that was the smartest way and the best way to represent our community? That's beyond disappointing. Those are my thoughts.
Jacob, in the year and a half that you dated Rose, was it common for her to like outshine others in the moment like that and make the moment about her?
Yeah. I recently posted a photo of us together from a photo shoot we did the day before I had surgery, and I was looking through all the photos, and most of the photos are just of her, and it was supposed to be my photo shoot, to kind of celebrate my pre-op body. And I remember that photo shoot, and she was just like, she was completely ignoring me, even though like we've been together a year, and I was about to have part of my leg chopped off the next day to build a appendage. So I was understandably, and I was also rushing to find new housing at this point in time. So like I had that anxiety. My parents weren't talking to me, and like the I invited her to this photo shoot to like so we could have some photos together. But I was like in the corner by myself, like, and she never checked in on me. She never asked if like how I was feeling. Um, she made me take a video of her dancing provocatively on um, a Westboro Baptist Church protester who was not even in the Pride event. He was outside on his side of the designated side of the fence. He hadn't said anything inappropriate. He didn't have any like violent or like vulgar signs or anything like that. He was just standing there, and like she was grinding up on him, and she made me take a video and post it on Instagram, and that was incredibly embarrassing because it's just like you you do things for attention. You don't think about the long lasting repercussion of like your actions, and so those are just a couple of examples that she just really loves attention no matter what it is.
So, one of the things that I'm really interested in doing in this conversation is shining a light on abuse coming from places that are typically protected or safe spaces. So, obviously, we're all LGBT here. You are a beautiful trans masculine person who's obviously very far in your transition and you're successful. I would love for you to tell us the story of how you met Rose and what circumstances you were in that um, caused her to start to take advantage of your trust.
A lot of uh, there's a lot of factors in my within my circumstances that you'll see common with the other victims. So her patterns of behavior and who she victimizes. It, so my story is not unique. Anything that I'm about to share, it's not unique. It's just how I met her. For most of the year up until I met her in October of 2018, I was homeless, and I had been forced into set. I had been forced into SW in the capacity of nude modeling because a trans person had stolen all of my surgery money and almost all of my belongings. Um, so I was in a really financially desperate place, and I was just trying to, gain a sense of community. I had been like couch surfing all over the country. My parents weren't talking to me. I was on state health care, so I could not exceed more than $1,700 a month in income. So I was only making about like $1,500 or $1,600 a month. And I was trying to start the long process of phalloplasty, which is, it, it takes a long time to even get started. So I had uh, dysphoria. I was, on the fringes of economic stability, to say the least. I was, living well below the poverty line. Um, and I had health issues. I didn't have a family support system. Um, so when we met, and she would, you know, she would weaponize really innocent things to kind of manipulate me. Like the first time that we hugged, it was a nice hug. I hadn't hugged anybody that I liked in a really long time, and it was a nice hug. But within like a few weeks of us dating and meeting, she would say that like, "Oh, didn't you feel that in our first hug? That's when we fell in love." And like, you know, I thought saying things like that was fast, and I thought it was a little weird to say that you fall in love with somebody that you had literally just started talking to that week and just met that day, that moment with a hug.
Did you guys like meet off an app?
Instagram. She had been she'd been leaving like flirtatious comments on my Instagram for like 6 or 7 months, but I didn't know. I I had been a couple other relationships in the year, so it wasn't like I don't check all my comments or anything. And she told me that like she'd been trying to reach out, uh, and we only really crossed paths because I lived in Portland and she lived in Seattle.
And how far are those two from each other?
Depending on the traffic, like 3 or 4 hours one way. So when we were together, pretty much every weekend I would drive to Seattle, pick her up, drive her back to Portland. We would spend the weekend in Portland, then I would drive her to Seattle and drive back to Portland. So I'd spend every second of my free time with her. So I didn't really have much of a support system outside of her. I didn't get to make too many deep friendships in Portland. I've had like maybe a couple friends because she just wanted all of my time.
Got it. And do you, so she obviously, from what you're saying, it felt like you were being love bombed. Did she try to get you to like move in with her super quickly, or like what was that situation like?
Uh, luckily for not, luckily enough, we were both in leases, and you know, she did start talking about us living together pretty soon into dating. I was definitely like, I don't know, between like 6 and 7 months, maybe 6 to 8 months within dating, and that's a little too soon for like my comfort. But like you said, love bomb. I wasn't even aware that that was like a thing, and that was a thing to be wary of at the time. Yeah, I was like 27 when we met, but I was really naive. I was a naive 27-year-old. Um, so I didn't realize that those could be techniques to kind of get somebody to gain somebody else's trust. And I grew up in the church, so I don't know. I don't assume that people have nefarious or ill intent. Uh, so I just take people at their word, like, oh well, they said this, so they must be being honest. Like, why would they be lying? And that's it's a dangerous mindset to have around her.
So when she said that you guys fell in love the first time you hugged, you didn't think twice about that.
Uh, she was just saying all the right words, and I thought that like we were just really compatible. But after learning more about her or what she says to her partners later on in life, and what her victims have told me, and the people who've come across her, uh, I think she was just trying to, you know, create a persona that I found very palatable, um, because she said a lot of things with me that are entirely inconsistent with every other relationship she's had since then. So I'm thinking that she was just trying to get me to fall in love with her. Uh, so like, fundamental things like what position you like to be in the bedroom and what type of relationship dynamic you prefer. For me, she told me that she preferred monogamy, and for everyone else since then, she says that she prefers polyamory. And she told me she had one certain relationship with dysphoria in her body and positions in the bedroom, and I learned it through the relationship that that wasn't true, and I've seen that in other relationships. So, falsely representing herself is something I came to find later on.
So the abuse started occurring, if I'm understanding, like was it after phalloplasty that it started occurring?
Um, no, the first time that I did directly say no, and I was also giving reasons why I was saying no, not that you need to give reasons. And I was very calm because I thought that that would be the best way to diffuse the situation, is just to say no and explain logically why no. Um, those were at least 2 months before I had phalloplasty. she didn't R word me, but she did touch my private area against my, very clearly expressed consent. And I don't understand why I needed. The first time, I don't understand why I needed to say anything. The second time, she was told specifically by the homeowners, who are my friends, that there was no permission for any sort of intimate act to be having in that room. Like, I remember the conversation. My friend Ty remembers the conversation. Britt remembers the conversation. They pulled her aside, and they didn't have to tell me, because like I was his friend and I'd known him for years, and they know that, I'm not gonna have sex in a kid's bed. I'm not gonna have sex in my friend's kid's bed, because that's gross on so many levels. You don't have to tell me that. But they don't know this person. They just met her. So they pull her inside and let her know, like, you have to respect that space while you're in there. And she said yes. Um, so she was very much, she was in the know. She wasn't, like, ignorant to any facts of the situation. She can't claim that she had consent either one of those times. Um, and the first time it happened, we were about 15 or 20 feet away from her disabled 15-year-old sister and her two cousins, who were much, much younger, like 4 to 8 years old. Uh, and we weren't in a space that had any walls. So there's no sound could be muffled. And, if you go into the room, you will see everything. And it was right by the kitchen. And, it was, there's no reason that people wouldn't get up to get a glass of water, get something to eat. And again, there's children around. Shouldn't have had to say anything, but I did, but that didn't matter. And those two events happened before I had phalloplasty, but she didn't start R-wording me until maybe 5 or 6 days when I got out of the hospital from my first surgery.
So much I want to dig into there. I mean, obviously, this is a person that has issues following rules, to say it nicely. They might have like a kink for breaking rules.
I think so. I haven't spoken about this publicly since she gets a look in her eye when she's doing something she knows she's not supposed to, or something that, like, she knows she's getting away with something, like that she's being sneaky, or that uh, it's just a look in her eyes when she's getting away with. It's something that she would do in public, like on dates. If, like, she could flirt and, like, get us free food, or do something like that, and, like, she would sexualize herself to get something that she wants, and she would, like, have this look in her eye, and, like, she would smile and she would laugh a little, or, like, she would, like, a little chuckle, like, and she would do the same thing when she was, like, assaulting me. Um, so I do think that, like, she gets off on doing things she's not supposed to be doing.
So here's what I wanted to point out. So you said that she R-worded you, what, 5-6 days after your phalloplasty.
When I got out of hospital, so it was about 11 days post-op, but I was very much on drugs for that whole first 6 weeks.
But she was with you during your doctor's visits, where your doctor said, how long should you go before having
Mm-hmm.
sex? How long is that?
3 months, no contact down there.
That is absolutely
So
bananas, because that is such an intense surgery. Can you talk to us a little bit about the surgery, what it does to your anatomy, and then what disturbances or violations could do to a trans man that's violated in that way?
yeah. I had what's called ALT phalloplasty, so the donor tissue was taken up from my left leg, and my skin graft was taken from my right leg. I have to adjust this real quick. I'm sorry. Um, when that happens, they take so much tissue. I'm gonna put this somewhere else. I apologize. When they take that much tissue from your leg, uh, you're incapable of bending at the knee uh, for at least 4 weeks. For me, it was about like 5 or 6 weeks. So I had during the time of recovery, I was incapable of bending at the knee, and I was incapable of bending at the waist, because they didn't want it to cut off the blood supply to the appendage. I had to keep my appendage at a 90-degree angle at all times. I was only allowed to stand for a maximum 5 minutes at a time, but that was only to go to the bathroom. And the type of phalloplasty I had, I kept all of my original anatomy. So my little guy, my front hole, all that was there, and she violated everything on multiple occasions.
That's really, and in all of those times, I know that sometimes you would be around people and you would be like afraid to speak up for making the situation blow up. Like, what was her response initially when this was happening and you would be like, this is not what I want?
She would just do it anyway, and it hurt because before we even had our first date, we had talked about how we were both victims of assault, and something that we struggle with, a phenomenon is called tonic immobility, and that means that in a fight or flight response, you'll either just freeze or you'll just kind of be in a disassociative, depersonalized state and just kind of go along. You don't want to make the situation worse, because you've been in that situation before and likely have tried to fight back and it did not go well. So she and I had spoken about that, and she said that she had that, and I told her that I had that. So when these things happened and that was my reaction, it hurt even more because she claimed to be fully aware of that phenomenon and personally understand it. Like I said, I was around children the first 2 times she assaulted me, and I didn't know the kids the first time. Like, I had just met her family like that day, and I didn't have a family that was talking to me. And I was really like, they're nice people. Like, I really just wanted to like be part of their family, and we were there for her cousin's wedding, and I didn't want to like scream and like freak out everybody in the house because like everybody was there, and like I was her ride back to Seattle from Idaho, so it was too much for me to process all at once. And I should have told somebody. Just I thought that I loved her, and I just I excused her behavior. I was like, oh, she was just caught up in the romance of the situation, and I knew that she was like, that touch was her love language, and that she had a really high sex drive. I didn't think she would touch me after my surgery. Like, even though she had made comments about like, oh, I don't know if I can wait 3 months. Like, I thought that like, that's just what your horny partner is gonna say. Like you just laugh it off. Like, you don't think that they're gonna do that.
That fucking pisses me off like to no end, because she markets herself as a consent advocate. So if anybody should understand the nuances of all of these things, it should be her. It's not your fault whatsoever. It's extremely weird. I don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that I shouldn't have sex with somebody after they had surgery on their genitals. It does not take any sort of specialized knowledge to know that. It doesn't take any specialized knowledge to know that I shouldn't be fucking somebody while kids are in the next room. All of that is completely asinine. And there's a part of me that's like, was she just mirroring some of the stuff that you told her to lure you in and make you feel safe? Because if you're a consent advocate, then you should and you're espousing all of these pieces of knowledge online, then you should know all of these things. It shouldn't have to be told to you. Is there any part of you that feels like this was like her trying to lure you into a trap?
Yeah, because she would cater like each of her partner's needs, and like she just cater herself. Like one of the other victims and I, in terms of like power dynamics and like romantic dynamics, and intimate dynamics, this person and I could not be further away on the spectrum, like further away. But she claimed to have these like deep like that we were the one, and that we were just perfect and perfectly compatible for her. And she likes to say very gender affirming things, that she knows that trans masculine people have issues with their masculinity, or if they're trans men, they have issues with their manhood, and society likes to amplify all those insecurities. So, when a somewhat attractive woman or femme, says uplifting things about, your masculinity, like tells you that you look strong, or that she loves your muscles, that you're such a handsome man, like stuff like that. Like she knows that we have fragile egos in that way, and that if you stroke it, we're gonna gravitate toward you. Like, I'm sorry to say it like it is. Society tells trans people that we're not desirable and not lovable. So when someone is constantly telling a trans person that they're desirable and lovable, it might impact the way they think.
Another question that I had just about these instances, I would be careful in asking this question, but is it possible that anybody was on substances when they were in this mindset?
When she was assaulting,
Yeah, I know that you specifically, you told us that you were on drugs basically, but was she possibly on anything?
there was one time that was violent in a different way than the other times, that she was drinking rosé on the couch, and um, I don't know if that played a factor. She didn't drink much. She didn't smoke much. And she didn't pop any pills. She wasn't on any psych meds. She didn't go to therapy. Not needed, but just thought I'd add that. So there was just one incident where I was on the opposite end of the couch, and we hadn't talked in like a bare minimum of 10 to 15 minutes. Like, no words had exchanged. We weren't texting. Um, there was no affection or intimacy before the 15 minutes of silence. Um, and I had my head hung down on the end of the couch, and I was sitting, and I was silently crying. I wasn't loudly crying. I was silently crying, because that's the only way I could get away with crying while she was around. And she jumped me out of nowhere, and lifted my head and forced herself inside of my mouth. And she knew that that's happened to me before while I was driving, and it really scared me, because the person who did it was really intoxicated, and then they took over the wheel, and she knew about that. She knew not to jump me out of nowhere. I have a tattoo about that, and she knew about that. So, uh, you know, I'm I'm just easily startled, because I have PTSD, and like, if like anything falls on top of me or jumps on top of me, like, I'm gonna push it off of me. Like, if a raccoon jumps out of a tree and falls on me right there, I'm gonna push it off of me. That's just instinctive. So I had to push her off of me, and this is before any of her surgeries, so she weighed like a paperclip. So she went pretty far. Like, she went like halfway across the room. And I don't know how this whole thing can occur, and you've only had maybe one or two glasses of rosé, and you claim you don't remember it at all. So that's the only time I can think of where she was on any sort of substance and she assaulted me. But again, she had maybe 1 or 2 glasses of rosé, like not a big glass.
Was there any type of apology or anything after that incident, or any of the times that the heinous acts happened?
Like immediately after, no. Um, and she didn't, uh, you know, admit to violating me or forcing herself upon me until over 2 months after we broke up. Um, and she did say I'm sorry, and you know, being young and naive and very very recently traumatized so many times that I wasn't in the right mindset to understand that her just saying those words, saying I'm sorry, that's not taking accountability. Um, and I wish that I'm just lucky to be alive. So I wish I could say that I wished I was strong enough at the time, but like I can't imagine being strong enough at the time to do anything more than what I did. Like it took every bit of strength and courage in me to like communicate with her, to like let her know what she did to me and like how it had affected me. And because I was under her spell for a really long time. She made me think that like I was the toxic one, and that you know I had like the severe mental health issues, like And I'm not saying that I don't struggle with mental health issues sometimes. I've never assaulted anybody, and I've never continued to assault people over and over and over again. I I would argue she has uh, mental health issues that probably require more focus than I do, or like more help.
So you said that she apologized about 2 months after. Where does the email fit into the timeline of all of this?
June 2020. So 2.5 months after the breakup, um, I was in the process of packing up all of her belongings for her, and her not compensating me in any way. It took every second of my free time, every single day, before work, after work, on my off days, for 6 weeks, because I was still very much brainwashed by her. I made sure that all the fragile items were nicely wrapped and everything was like labeled. Tried to organize it as best as I could. Um, it took up at least half of the living room, like 3.5 feet tall stacks. Like it was dozens and dozens of boxes. I took apart her bed frame for her. I returned her Xfinity hookup, everything. I 2-day rushed a Fenty, Savage Fenty something for her so she could promote it on social media. And I'm pretty sure I'd already confronted her about R wording me at this point. And she's demanding that I do these things for her, demanding that I give her the security deposit back when I said, you're making me, I'm already losing like $250 a day that you're making me not go, that you're not letting me go to work because I have to stay here for your movers when I begged you to do it on one of my days off. Like, I'm already losing like $250 to $500 for that, and I packed up all of your things. Uh, it's a really cheap apartment, and I'm keeping quiet about the abuse. So I'll admit, no, she didn't get her like $500 security deposit back, but it would have cost her a lot more money if the movers had to pack up all of her stuff for her. So I was trying to save her money, but I guess I'm the abuser.
I'm very triggered and touched by your story, Jacob, because my first sexual encounter was with like an older boy when I was too young to have it. And I'm from a extremely like religious background, and I don't remember being attracted to men or boys before that incident happened. And so it it traumatized me, first of all, because it was unwanted. That's number one. Um, and number two, because I constantly I became almost like hyper vigilant in trying to control people's behaviors or predict people's behaviors after. And one of the things that's like happening to me as I hear you talk about this and I'm feeling triggered about it, I'm I'm looking at relationships in my life like super hyper vigilant to make sure that they never violate my consent in any way. And part of the thing that I want other transgender people to get from this conversation is if there are pink flags or red flags, what they are and how to avoid them. I think that's impossible because sometimes life just comes at you and you just have to live life. And, you did the best that you could with the knowledge that you had. And I did the best that I could with the knowledge that I have. And that's all anybody ever does. But I can't help but wonder, I'm like, at the beginning of your relationship with her, like now that you have the benefit of hindsight, um, was there anything that like sticks out to you as something that you were like, that's a red flag now that I have this experience?
The comment where she had texted me saying that she wasn't sure if she could wait 3 months. Hi, baby. Yes, you're the star. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We like cats.
um, the comment where she said that she didn't think she could wait 3 months. That was a red flag. Um, there were a couple times that I told her I wanted to go either meet up with a trans masculine friend or go to like a trans masculine event, and she convinced me to not go and to spend time with her instead. Um, and I just thought it was unfair at the time that like, oh, like, if she had if there's a trans woman who wanted to meet up with her, or there's an event for trans women, that if she wanted to do that instead of seeing me, I would be totally understanding. But I didn't understand that. Like, I just thought she wasn't being understanding. I didn't see it as um, a total red flag. I thought it was like an orange flag. No, they were all red flags. Uh, and I don't know if this was part of. Hi, baby. I don't know if this was part of her strategy to get control of me. Hey, you're in the camera. I don't know if this was her strategy to get control of me. But like I said, she would insist that I pick her up from Seattle and bring her to Portland and back. And she wasn't giving me any gas money. She wasn't helping me pay for any of the maintenance on my car. She wasn't doing anything to kind of financially help the relationship. Um, and she would make comments about like, uh, shouldn't I be the one paying for dinner or something? And like, I thought that was weird. I thought that like, you know, she was about like gender equality and breaking down those like harmful gender stereotypes. But I thought it was like an orange flag and not a red flag. I thought it was like, oh, she wants to feel feminine in the traditional way. She wants to feel taken care of. But I didn't see it as, oh, she's taking all of my money, so when I need to leave, I don't have any money. So,
What are some things that she would do to gaslight you if you brought up, things about like the gas money or the car repairs? I mean, 4 hours each way, that's a lot of wear and tear to put on a car every single weekend.
um, she would, I'll just be blunt. She would just start crying about her uh, student loans, and like, uh, I don't understand why your financial situation is, like, you know, we're both in dire situations. Why should I have like all my funds kind of sucked? Like, why can't we go Dutch more? Like, why can't it be more even? Like, I was making substantially less money than her, and she knew. Um, so, uh, yeah, that was that was her main go to, is just like try to make me feel guilty about what she was going through and take the focus off of I'm living below the poverty line. Like, can we like go a little half and half on stuff.
That infuriates me because so many influencers act like they're so fucking loaded. And clearly, if she's making you pay in that situation, you're not. Either that or you're extremely manipulative. Speaking of manipulative, I think the craziest part of all of this, that it shocks me and it's not surprising at the same time. She tried to spin those accusations out and accuse you of doing the things that she actually did, and you expertly called them out. I want to play the video where you did that. It's actually the first video that I've seen of you that made me extremely interested in talking to you about this. So give me a second to share my screen and I'll do that.
Rose, I was just informed that you've accused me of DV, even though you've admitted to DV in our relationship. So, I was just wondering, why did you send me this email where you confessed to all of the ways you harmed me? And yet, I'm the one who harmed you? Why didn't you say that? Why are you admitting to violating me? I'm just really confused. Why aren't you answering all the questions from the trans community? They have a lot of questions right now. They want you to take accountability. You confessed right here. Look at what you said. I didn't say that. This is from your Gmail account. I just want you to take accountability for the ways that you've harmed me, my brother, and the others.
That's first and foremost, that's really, really good. Second of all, can you detail the way, like, how does she go about accusing you? Was it like she verbally said it, or how did that happen?
I've only heard it word of mouth. She didn't say it to me directly. I think if she had those accusations at the time, she would have said something, or she would have said something at the time that she was not afraid to speak her mind. Um, uh, she had the dominant personality. I had the personality, so she would have been a lot more likely to say something at the time. But if I'm coming to her saying, "Hey, you violated me in these ways," why would she not take the opportunity to say, "Oh no, you did those things"? Um, so I found out through some of her other victims that that's what she tells the people that she dates, is that I'm on steroids, which you know it's not even true that I'm not on I'm on testosterone and I'm on my therapeutic dose for hormone replacement therapy. So that is a steroid, but I don't take any other anabolic substance other than that. So she took a conversation that we had and twisted that. So she just tells people that I'm a roid raging abuser, and that I was never violent with her. The only time that I ever had to get assertive or aggressive with her was when I shoved her off of me. I was never able to like push her off of me any other time, and I tried, but she's a woman, and I wasn't trying to like aggressively shove her off. I was trying to like in a normal way that you would do when you're not consenting to something or you want something to stop. And you say no and you try to shove people off, but she's stronger than she looks.
Given the dynamics of the relationship and all that you've been through, how does it make you feel seeing that video? That was like a really brave thing to do.
Um, I'll be honest. She's never one to say sorry or admit to any type of wrongdoing when we were in a relationship. So I was not expecting her to admit to it when she emailed me. But the first thing I did was forward that to my mother, um, and I favorited the email. So I didn't know. I didn't know what saving that email would do. Um, I just know that I had to save that for like my own sanity because she tried to gaslight me into believing that she hadn't done anything wrong, and I knew that she had. I knew she had the whole time, and it took me so long to use the right language to describe the way she was violating me because that's it was just really it was too heartbreaking that I thought that she I thought that I'm this trans man, she's this trans woman, and that we both just want to help the community, and that's our passion in life. And I thought that we were in love. So that's I don't think anything could ever break my heart more than that. It wasn't heartbreaking the fact that like, oh no, like I wanted to marry this person. Like that's something that she talked about. It's just heartbreaking that you spend a year, all your free time, talking to this person, spending time with them, and learning to trust them and like open up to them, and you're with them during your most vulnerable time, and they tell you that they're going to take care of you, and they do the most painful, god awful, horrifying things. Um, yeah, it broke my heart, but I had to learn how to cauterize those wounds. Since then, uh, I really didn't think I could ever fall in love again after that for many years. Um, and I haven't been in a relationship since then, but I know that I can't be. I know that I'm not so much that you know I can't be in a loving relationship. I know that most people aren't like uh, most people are safe. Most people are not that vile. So uh, yeah, it broke my heart, but I'm a lot stronger now.
Definitely a huge step in taking your power back, and that's something that you should be extremely proud of. Um, has she tried to reach out to you since that video came out, or has anything gone back to you through the grapevine?
She hasn't reached out to me directly. The first time anyone saw anything of hers posted publicly uh, after we came forward, her boyfriend posted a picture of them eating Starbucks cake pops together, and the caption was like, "It's the little thing." And, oh, that didn't sit well with me or any of the victims. Like, she does not care about other people's feelings. She doesn't care about the harm she causes. And she was smiling in that picture, and she had her like $10,000 designer poodle and her like big 3 bedroom Hollywood apartment. She had her phone with her; it was on, so she can't say that she didn't have her phone. And she's smiling, and I think the kicker is that she still has the trans pride flags as her nails. Like, doesn't care what she's doing to the community.
So, one of the things that I saw on your Instagram, and I thought this was really brave too, you reached out to the underwear company that she had a brand deal with. And it looks like that they are still following each other and that they're still in some type of partnership. Did their communication with you go past the comment that they left?
Uh, I'm not sure. Did you check if they're following after I left that com? Because they responded. So I don't know if they.
Yeah, I checked the other day.
Oh, okay. They did remove her photos. Um, didn't know that they still followed her. Interesting. Uh, very interesting. Um,
Well, they better do more than that because there's multiple. I mean, when I was listening to you talk, you did an interview with another guy that is speaking out against her, Elijah, who is a trans masculine person. I heard the names Ty and Brett. I mean, you personally know several people that are openly saying that she violated them in the same way. It's not like it's only you out there. Even if it was only you, that would be more than believable. But this is like damning. I mean, there's I'm sure more than what I just named.
Ty and Britt called her out for what she did to me at their house.
Got it.
Adriel came forward recently. His Instagram name is El Chico Addy. She So far, he's only really disclosed that she was very emotionally abusive and she threatened to destroy his reputation. Um, Another young man named Yeo came forward. Um, he's talking about being abused by another woman, but he also goes on to talk about how Rose was trying to groom him, and he was just like not having it. That he could tell that that's what she was doing. Uh, Salem has spoken about his relationship and how he noticed patterns of behavior with Rose. He shared something with me that I'm not sure if he's shared publicly yet, uh, but he's another one of her exes that has called her out and has recognized a pattern of abusive behavior. Trying to make sure that I'm getting everyone. Um, so I think that's everyone that I can name off the top of my head that's come forward publicly. I've been in private conversations with other ones, and you know, healing isn't linear, and we're all at different parts of the different stages of that process. We've all had different amounts of time to process it. We've all had different amounts of support systems to help us through these things. So, we're all in different life circumstances. Not everybody can come forward. Uh, I'm just in a place where I really felt left to lose. I lost my community. So, what else was from me?
With I think one of the most important things is that your story is highlighted, and obviously why we wanted to have you on, and you know make sure that you and these other victims get justice. Where does that stand right now in the process? Are you seeking a legal route?
That's a good question. You know, I I never wanted to come forward publicly, to be honest, because I didn't, regardless of how disgusted and horrified I am and how painful everything was. I think maybe it was because I had so many years in isolation away from the community, and like I was agoraphobic. I couldn't leave the house, and it really messed me up mentally. And that's only something I've been dealing with for a few years. I didn't think it was fair to, you know, give her the punishment of that for a lifetime. I didn't think that, like, coming forward publicly and like having her just like the trans community turn their back on her. I didn't think that that was fair, so I didn't want to do that. And I also, I didn't want the neoconservative news media outlets to get a hold of this story because this is something that they would love to hear because it goes with their narrative that trans people are groomers and we're predators and da 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 da. Da. So, for the sake of the community, for the sake of trans women, for the sake of trans women of color, like, I did not want this to get out. I just wanted her to stop. So I thought maybe reminding her over the years was a way to do it. And she provided me with plenty of evidence of me contacting her over the years, reminding her of what she had done. Uh, yeah, nothing I did was illegal. Just pointing it out there. I just, for my own mental health, hearing that she was like, just really just trying to amp up her career, just trying to be like a big, famous social media influencer, like celebrity or whatever, like it hurt knowing that she was portraying herself as this good person to the community and people were looking up to her. And I knew the truth. So I would remind her. And I thought reminding her privately would get her to stop. And 11 victims doesn't sound like she's slowed down. So, but when we decided to come forward publicly, we were only aware of 5. And then coming forward publicly is how we found more. So I didn't want to come forward publicly, and I didn't want to have to, I don't have to go on podcasts and keep talking. I thought that, maybe in the first few days, like, she would say something. It's been over a month. And for the second time, she's tried to serve me with a restraining order. Um, she didn't serve it to me before because it was denied, and this one is also denied because I've never threatened her in any way. And I've, other than going to Los Angeles recently to film the podcast, I've purposely tried to stay away from her because she's made me afraid for my life, afraid for my safety, afraid for just having comfort in the world. Like, I've wanted nothing to do with her. So she thought that it was appropriate to stalk my parents' house for 2 weeks while I was out of town. And around 10 o'clock in the morning the other day, uh, I had pulled up and I was very sleep deprived because I hadn't slept. I was coming from a long drive. And a man came up to my car and he was power walking very aggressively, and it was, not the type of demeanor that somebody walks up to the house to. And my mother was standing right there, and I thought he was going to go over to her to ask her something. He comes right to me, and I'm in my car, my window's closed, and he aggressively taps on the window, and I don't know what's going on. So I just crack the window a little bit, and he aggressively shoves the paper in my mouth or shuts it in my face and walks away. So I was gonna, say goodbye to my family and friends up there, but I didn't get that opportunity. It was a little unsettling. I also didn't know that you could be served with a denied restraining order. I feel like she's doing this just to scare me. I feel like she's doing this just to try to silence me. Feels a little late for that since it's been over a month since I've gone forward publicly. Just thought I'd point that out there. So she's kind of put me in the position where I have to talk to lawyers, and I didn't want it to come to this. I just wanted her to stop. And if she can't take accountability and get the help that she needs, then, I feel like it's my responsibility to continue warning the community. And if, the courts need to get involved, if a judge needs to get involved, if there needs to be some sort of settlement to kind of solidify the fact that, hey, you did this. If you're not going to say the words "I'm guilty," we need some sort of admission of guilt, because you harm so many people. You can't just keep walking through life thinking that's okay and that you got away with it. You cause so much damage to people. You need help, and I don't know, I have to go this route, but she's the first one to get lawyers, so I'm just responding.
I wanted to wrap up this conversation thinking about people who are going through abusive situations. A lot of times you can't leave right away when you're in them. What advice would you give to people who are in situations or who have been in situations to find themselves the healing and the strength to be okay again?
I feel like something I've learned by talking to the other victims and talking to other transmasculine victims, and this isn't exclusive to transmasculine people, but I think it's something unique that we struggle with, is asking for help. A lot of us will subconsciously see it as a sign of weakness, that men and masculine people, they can take care of themselves. Boys don't cry, all that jazz. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter how you present. Anybody can be a victim of abuse, be a victim of assault, and that shouldn't deter you from seeking help, whatever that looks like. And a lot of the times, people don't have the resources to get professional help, or the free resources that are in the area aren't very helpful, or they're hard to access. Being a part of the community, to me, means that we support each other. So I've been doing my best to you know, just be a listening ear to people, and just letting them know that they're not alone, and giving whatever advice I can to help with trauma healing. I address it a lot from a physiological standpoint. Resetting the central nervous system. Retraining the adrenal glands. Uh, I think bottling it up is probably one of the worst things you can do, and I understand needing to do that for a while. But finding safe people and safe ways to talk about it and just let it out of you, it releases that stress a little bit. It releases it from the body, and you don't have to hold on to that pain. That would be my advice: is that some people, they prefer opening up to a stranger, like somebody they don't know that well. It doesn't have to be a close friend. It doesn't have to be a family member. But being part of communities that we support each other. So like, if you see somebody in our community and it looks like they're hurting, it's not gonna, it's probably not gonna hurt them to just check in and be like, hey, are you doing okay? Is there anything I can do for you? It doesn't cost a dime to do that, and that's the best way we can help ourselves and take care of each other.
Well, Jacob, we want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story. It's been extremely inspiring and heartbreaking, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. Where can people find you online?
I'm switching my TikTok over to Fallow Daddy soon. Right now it's still Transjock, but my other handles are Fallow Daddy, so that's PHALLODADDY.
Nice. Love it. Danny, what about you and us?
You can find us at t.girls.pod. Jacob, thank you so much for sharing your story and displaying courage, and hopefully giving others courage too.
Uh, I'm just trying to make sure no one gets hurt again. Just doing what I'm supposed to.
Awesome. And then you guys can find me at Tranalytics on TikTok and YouTube. We're looking forward to more conversations like this. If you guys like what you've heard, please subscribe and follow Jacob, Danny, and myself. Thanks for watching, everybody.